Good day, everyone. We're here with Jamie Henderson, General Manager of Thunderbirds, and also Ottawa 67 Scout. How are you today, Jamie?
I'm great, Jay. Thanks for having me.
First question, foremost, we're just going to talk one question about last season. First time in 6 years that the Thunderbirds didn't make the Western Final. What contributed to that, you think?
Thanks for reminding me. 6 years. Well, literally, it started we played a good team, first of all, first and foremost. I mean, played a older, bigger, stronger team. They went and loaded up at the deadline. Obviously brought some OHL players in, and sometimes we've had years where we've been on the other end of that too, where we brought the older guys in, and it's paid off for us. Having said that, I loved we were up 2-1 in the series. I loved where our team was at. It was a huge game 2 win, overtime, I believe. And then we had, 2 key injuries. We started the playoffs with 2 key injuries, losing Cannon O'Neill and Charlie Monroe, and then we lost Trushan game 2 or 3, and then Sonnedecker in game 3 there that we ended up winning. But after that, you could see it. We just didn't have the depth to overcome, and their older guys took it to us. Credit to them. We battled, we competed, but we just couldn't muster up enough offense to get on the inside. You're watching the NHL playoffs now. That's what it's all about, and our younger, smaller forwards just couldn't get on the inside enough, and their power play started to come around, and I thought a couple of their key guys really played well, and we saw Noah Metivier, the old Noah Metivier, that we saw firsthand 2 years ago, and he really played well, stepped up his game when we know he can, and give their staff credit. They played with a lot more structure, I thought, than they did last year. And, it's one of those things, they hadn't won, and a lot of those guys were on the losing end last year, and they saw, what it took to win. And so credit to them. They made the adjustments. And, I would have loved to have given them our best shot with a healthy lineup, but that's sports, and, we move on.
And it's not that you wanted to say it, but at least you can say you lost to the league champions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think no disrespect to the East, they had some great teams as well, but just the way the season went and how the games were going from the West to the East. I mean, we kind of thought whoever, confidently, I guess the way we looked at it, whoever was going to come out of the West was going to have a good chance to win. And, Boston had a great team as well. Timmins had a good team. And, but yeah, you gotta have everything going to win a championship. You have to have your special teams, your goaltending. You have to have depth. You have to, get a little lucky with the injuries. And, I think in that series, they weren't missing anybody, and we were missing obviously 4 key guys. And, there was, some plays here and there that, suspension wise that got overturned that maybe could have made the difference, maybe in a game or two, but ultimately over the course of a 7-game series, you need everybody going. And, with some key injuries, we just didn't have that.
And going into 24-25, you have 3 draft picks that are on your roster for the OHL, and Colton Bure, Cannon O'Neill, but he also has Lake State, and Jacob Smith with your Ottawa 67s. Are you going to see those 3 back, you think?
It's a good question. Colton will be moving on. I think he's played 2 years in the league now. I think he established himself, in our opinion, as the top goalie in the league. Last year, no disrespect to Blind River's goalie, was right there with him, and so both great goalies. Our whole league really had a lot of great goaltending this year. So Colton will move on. As for Jacob and Camden, still to be determined. Cannon's a little different in that his focus is now on the college, so. He has time. He has 3 more years probably at least 3 more years of junior A hockey to play. So, we would hope that he's back for another season. The opportunity to be one of the top players in our league and be a leader in our room, I think, is something that we feel is important. But ultimately, they have to make what's the decision that's best for them. Jacob's sort of in a similar spot. He's going to have an opportunity to compete for a spot with the 67s at training camp if that's the route he wants to take. Some of that will be determined by what Ottawa decides in terms of, off-season moves and then what Jacob really wants. He's now, in 06, he's a 17-year-old turning 18. So, you get old really quick in the OHL. And so he's already, lost a couple years of eligibility there. So, we'll see. The message to those guys is, let's just keep getting better and we'll see what happens with those guys. But Colton, in our exit meeting, he's ready to make a step to, maybe a little higher profile league. And so we'll give him that opportunity. We'll just see. We haven't, obviously we're not able to announce a deal, but we haven't made a deal for him yet. So we're not there.
And you have 14 other players that are possibly coming back. Not all of them probably aren't coming back.
Yeah, no, not even close. With this team year after year, it's almost a complete turnover. Off the top of my head, we might have 5, maybe 4, 5, 6 returning players. And, you never know with like a Jacob Smith or Candon or, Grayson Ibrahim, those guys. We do have some guys that are coming back that have confirmed that. So we're excited about that. But, we have a really strong recruiting class coming in as well. And, with having a younger group, typically year after year, we understand that, we're going to probably almost have to rebuild the roster almost year after year. So that's fine. That's what we sign up for. And, it's an exciting opportunity for new players to come in and to be part of this program.
And the thing is looking at it, last year alone, you were the second smallest and the second youngest in the league. So rebuilding is a thing that you have to do almost every season, like you say, right?
Yeah, going back, I remember one year, Kevin, I think we had 2 returning players. I think we even started a year one time with maybe even one or 2. So it's just I think it's all across the league, really. Like if a 16 or 17-year-old does really well, typically they want to move on, whether it's the OHL or, one of the other junior leagues, and that's fine. We do have some players here who also value the opportunities they get to pursue Division III hockey or school along with hockey later on if they stay a few more years. So there's that opportunity. But yeah, I mean, we were a young team last year. We're going to be even younger this year. If there's a team younger than us this year, I'll be shocked. We have very little in terms of 19 and 20-year-olds coming, and we're really excited for this young crop. And ultimately, what that does is, when we're recruiting these players is, they're having an opportunity to come in and play right away. They're not behind 10 or 12 or 15, 19 and 20-year-olds. I remember when we went to the Centennial Cup 2 years ago, one of the teams we played had 19 guys who were 19 or 20 years old. And I think we had, 10 or so. So, and this year we have half of that so far. So obviously things can change here in the next few weeks, but we're getting pretty close to where we need to be commitment wise. And it's going to be a really young group. It's going to be fast. We got a little more size this year. It's something obviously we needed to address, but ultimately it's not just about size. We had some, Sonderdecker is a big player and he got hurt. Cannon and O'Neill, they don't get much stronger than Cannon and he got hurt. So, it happens. It's not always just how big you are. It's, being aware on the ice, and it's a physical league. There were some plays, to be honest with you, we didn't love that. But ultimately our players have to be able to protect themselves as well. And it's something we'll focus on from day one. We have to be more aware on the ice because we can't have, you don't help your team if you're not available. And so it'll be a big part of what we're doing.
In the last couple of seasons, you've had a few Greyhound, like say young draft picks, Andrew Gibson, let's say Detroit draft pick, Brody McConnell Barker. Will you see James Elliott probably in your roster if he doesn't make the Greyhound roster? Do you know?
We'll see. We're working on our, right now we have 2 16-year-old cards as usual. We haven't used one of them yet. We do obviously have some conversations. Those conversations happen with the agents and the families. So, probably less to do with the Greyhounds and just more to do with, where the family wants to be and where the agents want to be. And obviously the Greyhounds have a say in that, but all the teams are the same. They want their players to go to a team where they're going to develop. And, history shows that our team, whether you mentioned Gibby or last year, Gallivan and O'Neill, but obviously having a local player be picked by the local team, it would make sense. We would love for to have, like last year we had Gallivan and O'Neill. It just so happens they were drafted by other teams, but we would really like the 2 16-year-old cards to be local. It may happen that way. It may not. We may have one. We may, and we'll see. Time will tell here in the next, hopefully, week or so.
And you have young goaltender Maverick Fletcher. If he's coming back, is he going to be fighting for the first, like say, number one position?
Yeah, Mav expressed his desire to come back, and that's the plan. And Maverick's a competitor. I think he'd be the first to admit, last season, his first year, kind of some ups and downs, and he's a young player. I mean, he's still only in 06, so he has 3 years of junior hockey left. So he'll compete. We have another high-end talented goalie coming in to compete, and we're excited about him. It's going to be a really young tandem as of right now. So we're not really in the business of handing out positions here, or
you fight for
first liner. The message is it's not that way at the next level, so it's not going to be that way here. And we have a lot of talented players coming in, so that's the message. And when you have that, it makes it for a competitive environment, and ultimately your team gets better.
And I know Junior A, your expectations are hopefully to help players move on or win a championship. But you as a general manager and Cole as the owner and coach, what are your expectations going into the fall?
Well, I think we'd be lying. Like, we're competitive people, right? Like, this is a program with
I want to say it's a business now, right?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's the bills have to be paid and all that. On the ice, like competitively, I've been fortunate to be part of a lot of winning teams here, and it's not a good feeling losing in the first round. We're not going to sugarcoat that.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're not used to it.
No. Right? I mean, yeah. So it's given us, we literally the next morning, we got 2 players committed the next day. We were done on a Saturday night, and by Sunday at 12, we had, I was on the phone and getting guys, committed. It's not a feeling we like. But it's not so much. We're not going to get caught up in, are we making the finals? Are we winning? Our biggest thing here is we want hockey players here. We want guys to come in who want to compete, who want to get better. Those things take care of themselves. Like if we bring in a whole bunch of guys and while we were close to that last year, we could take a big step in that regard in terms of, having more guys committed, and that's off the ice. And that's the biggest thing I think that I'm excited about is the guys coming in, they're really committed off the ice. This isn't just a show up at 3:30 practice, skate for an hour and a half, and then show up Friday night. It's every day. It's all week during practice. And from August when they get here until, hopefully late in April, maybe even May when they leave. So the goal is we've already, we're started working toward that. Find great people, guys who want to be hockey players, guys who want to play college hockey, guys who want to play in the OHL, guys who want to just play as high level hockey as they can. And, if that's the goal to get to the USHL one year, the North American League or the BCHL, whatever the league is, we want those guys and we want to be part of their development. But having said all that, if you do all those things and you get enough, you get a whole room full of those kind of guys, usually it translates. And we're trying something new here. Like, we got a really young group. Typically over the years, we were really young 2 years ago. The years prior, the years that you mentioned winning, we were older teams. So, but back then we had a lot of younger, local older guys, I would say too, right? Less. So it's just that some of those things evolve, it's just organically. Sometimes you have access to those guys. Sometimes you don't. It depends on the years, like there's certain years where birth years, for example, where, they were really good Thunderbirds, but they weren't good enough to be in the OHL, right? And so you end up having a great Thunderbirds. Then there's certain years where you have 4 or 5 or 6 OHL players. Well, that's great. I mean, we want that, right? So, and that just means there's less local players. So we'd like to be as local as possible, but we're really happy with where we're at commitment-wise. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to kind of to come back is just we want hockey players here. We want guys to bring it every day. And if we do that, I think we'll have success.
And one big question when it comes to recruiting for you as general manager or Cole as a coach, how do you guys balance development versus winning?
I think it goes to just, our everyday process. Like we're committed here to help everybody get better. And, it's a two-way street though. You know what I mean? Like the guys who, it's ultimately on me to find enough of those guys that really want to be coached, that enjoy watching video, that want to go to the gym. When we say, hey, it's meet at the gym at 10 o'clock, it's everybody's there. that's supposed to be there. It's not, oh, when I feel like going. So it's a two-way street. And like I said, it's my job to find those guys. It's not always easy to find a full room. Sometimes guys like to talk a big, they talk big and they say, oh, I talk a big game and I want to do this and I want to do that. And then, once the dog days of December, January, February come, when you've been doing it for 3-4 months, it becomes a little bit more difficult. So that's always going to be our thing. It's what we do on a daily basis with young players here. We want to help players move on. And, but we also want to be able to guide them in terms of, what's best for their development. And oftentimes moving on to another league isn't the answer, just playing more. But having said that, it also, you need patience as a young player as well, right? Like every roster now is 25 players, and there's players, there's some guys who worry, hey, I might be the 7th or 8th defenseman. Well, you look at our team, for example, last year, we had 9 defensemen at the trade deadline, and then we moved, or 10, I think, we moved a couple out, and we were down to 3 in the playoffs. So it's junior hockey. Your younger players are going to have to really earn their stripes and have some patience. And, I really love our program for what we can do to help players. But like I said, it's a two-way street.
And not asking any names or players, but on your exit interviews for the returning players, what did you say as a coaching staff to work on for when they come back in August?
Well, again, that's an individual thing. I mean, there's certain players who, their skating is up to par. Usually that's, it's the usual, kind of taglines is, you got to get bigger, you got to get stronger. You got to get quicker. I thought our team speed was fine, but ultimately it all comes down to, when you get to the playoffs, like those battles, right? Those one-on-one battles and the compete level. So, sometimes you're trying hard, but maybe you don't have the right technique, or, you're not doing the things you need to do out there, even though in your mind you want to get the puck, but you're just not doing the right things. So, each one's different. But obviously, the guys that have come back, and even like, some of the guys who have been with us now through the U18, we lost in the finals, kind of a heartbreaking. So there's a few guys that are still kind of a little bit hungry from that even. So we had 2 kind of, I would say, endings that we didn't really love, me included in that. And but it motivates you to a point, but what motivates us is just to get really, really good people here and to get guys that are really hungry to play for the Sioux Thunderbirds. And they want to be part of this league, and they understand why it's a great league for young players to develop and to get an opportunity to play. And those are the guys we're after. And if we find enough of them, I always like our chances with the Sioux Thunderbirds.
And like I say, coming June 1st, when you can say just under a month, you can announce players. But will we hopefully see a couple local U18 players who have graduated come onto your roster?
Yeah, absolutely. We met with them back in February. We wanted them to understand that, we wanted to make a commitment to them, like an early one. We weren't going to fool around with it. We got them all together and we offered, and those who took advantage of that got ahead of the recruiting curve. Obviously, I as I said in that meeting, if they weren't ready to commit, I got to do a job here. So there were some that committed right away, which was great. Some of them that have been affiliates with us now who have had some success, and then some who weren't affiliates with us. So there'll be, off the top of my head, I think probably a handful of players coming here, and so that's exciting. And we're going to try to have close to half the roster of local players if we can. But we can't force it, and it's got to be a two-way street. There's some times where we're offering players spots, whether it's in January, February, March, and maybe they want to explore other opportunities, and to each his own.
And I know I ask this probably to you every year, and now you're like say no U18 now, like say you're with the Thunderbirds in Ottawa, but how do we keep our local kids in Sault Ste. Marie instead of the grass isn't always greener on the other side? What do you say to that?
I got to be careful what I say about that one. Ultimately, for me, we always believed, for the years that we had the U18, I don't know if there's a player that left, and I attribute that more to the players in the early years, like the Jack Mateers and Cooper Fosters, rather than to me. Really, I don't think it had a whole lot to do with me. I think it had to do with the players buying into what we were doing, and players could see like, hey, Jack stayed here. Well, he was a first rounder. Then he made it, then he got drafted, and then Cooper, same thing. And Hudson Chitteroni, all these guys. I think what, ultimately, again, watching what I say, you have to build a program. I'm not going to sit here and say whether I believe we should have one team or two teams. Nobody asks my opinion. I've coached both. We were last ranked team in Ontario in the U16 years. We walked in the rink and scouts left, and that was something we talked about. We want to build a program so that it's the opposite. And then, 2 years ago or last year, when we had 7 draft picks, it was the opposite where, we've had, we have games where we'd be 50, 60 scouts watching our games when we go to tournaments. So to me, was it broken? Obviously not. Like we had 7 draft picks. It was never about the draft picks. For me, it was, Gallivan signed, Chitteroni signed, Rylan Fellinger made the OHL. Oni got a full ride scholarship. That's what it's all about. It's not about having 10 guys drafted in the 15th round. It's about moving guys on to the next level. And again, are players leaving because we don't have a U16 team? Are they leaving because they play in the Great North Midget League or Great North U18 League? Are they leaving because they're being told to leave? Those are all, I think the answer to that is yes, yes, and yes. It's all part of it. Like we have 2 teams this year, and I know 2 top players are moving on, in the U16 team. So having a U16 team didn't keep those guys here. We have a U18 team, and some of those guys are looking to move. So ultimately, all you can do is what you can. All I ever worried about was controlling what we can control, and that was providing the best program possible for the guys who want to stay. And I know Denny and Stevie are committed to doing the same thing. And ultimately, the people who make those decisions will have to decide whether having one team or 2 teams is the best avenue. My opinion is, like I said, they don't ask it. But my opinion is we need our best players to play with our best players. That's always the best for development. Having higher end players play with players who have been AA players their whole life does not help that. It just doesn't. And people might not like to hear that, but that's the reality. If you're a good player, you need to go against other good players. You need to go against the best of the best. And if you asked Hudson Chitteroni what was the best part of playing U18 hockey, because it wasn't easy for him, going against bigger guys. It was going against Jacob Smith, going against Callum McCauley, going against older players every single day at practice. That helped him get better. Same thing with Rylan Fellinger, battling against Wards and Smitty and all these older guys, right? So now you end up with a team where you're one of the better guys and you're battling every day with guys who have played AA hockey. Now, I'm all for players moving up, if you end up making the AAA team, but because you've gotten better, not because we need to fill a team. There's a big difference. So, I really saw a difference. I mean, I coached the U16 team for 2 years, and every time, like one year we took a player who played single A hockey. Now,
sorry, you might have diamonds in the rough, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't usually have diamonds in the rough that have played single A hockey at 16 years old, but there are players who have. But again, it's also, I think, incumbent on us to make sure that we're helping the development. Again, it's not about the Mateers and Coopers and that. It's not just about them, but it's also partly about them. You know what I mean? It's not fair to say, well, it doesn't help Jack, so we can't do it. That's not fair. We have to develop, a ton of other hockey players. It's not just about the elite guy. We're talking about the Thunderbird program here. Like, we need as many players staying in the AAA system and AA system as possible. We've had players on every championship team, as far as I could go back, who played high school hockey, right? Yep. But having said that,
Harley Wardell.
I mean, he just played a little bit, this year, but I'm talking guys back in the 2012, 2011 season, 2015. Anthony Miller was our captain. He played high school hockey.
Yeah.
And there was guys before then. So
Colin Miller.
Yeah, exactly. Going way back. So literally we could spend the whole day talking about this topic. My thing is, and I know, other hockey people that we talk to, it's really tough because it's ultimately everybody focuses on the 15-year-old year. And then what do we do in the 16-year-old year? So I saw that they posted, a lineup that had 3 defensemen and 8 forwards. Where are the other players coming from? Right. And because those second-year players who are drafted, they want a bigger challenge than, and it's no knock. It's just honesty. People need to understand it's honesty. If you look at the rankings of the teams in the U18 league, traditionally 5 of the teams are ranked in the bottom 10 in Ontario. Every single year, it's 4 or 5 teams. So if you're a 16-year-old, if I have a 16-year-old, is that where I want my 16-year-old to develop? That's the question you ultimately have to ask. Is it going to hurt them playing there? No, I mean, I don't want to be a hypocrite here because we had these conversations with parents for the last, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it was. So I just hope that, players stay, but we have to give them a reason to stay. And to me, you have to put really good players with really good players. And if there's really good players with players who are just there to fill the team and to pay the player fees and to be a 4th line and to be the 5th and 6th defenseman, that's where you get into trouble. That's what happened 6, 7, 8 years ago when both teams, the U18 and the U16, were bottom of the province. And then all of a sudden, I remember, one person in the media writing, how is North Bay so good and the Sioux stinks? Well, then fast forward a couple of years and it was one team here. And the last year we did it, we were at one point a top 10 team in Ontario. So it wasn't that we don't have hockey players here. It was we didn't have enough players for 2 teams. And again, has that changed? In my opinion, it hasn't. But like I said, I don't make those decisions. I don't sit on the board. Our thing here at the Thunderbirds is we would love for players to stay. We would love to work with them as affiliates. We would love to have them as 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds play here for us. But we understand they have to do what's best for their development. And so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Time will tell. Ultimately, the results will dictate whether the right decision has been made. I have my feelings on whether it is or isn't, and I'll keep that to myself. But time will tell. It won't be anybody's opinions. The results will speak for themselves.
And here, talk a little bit about, we can go from you when you were the U18 coach to the GM now in Ottawa. Talk a little bit about how the benefit of the U18 OHL draft helps players, like you say. It gives them a little bit more, I still have a chance, right?
Well, I mean, for anybody who watched Ottawa, our GM, James, and assist GM, Jan did a great job in bringing in Saimae this year. He was with Peterborough when they won a championship last year. He was a U18 pick. We love the story of Caleb Mangoni, right? I mean, what he did, he was a Sioux killer here, right? If anybody who watched that series. So
this year he was not the same kid that played for you, like, and not being mean, but totally different.
Well, I mean, I think it's funny how that works out because just specifically to him, I think he's all of that player. I mean, we saw it. We saw it every day. The difference was his second year with us was COVID. So, sure. I mean, we only got to play Sudbury. But, the GM in Saginaw will be the first to tell you, we were sending them video of Cooper Foster. We thought Coop was a first or second rounder. We were sending video, and every time we had video clips, it was, who's this number 7? And one of my favorite stories is we played Sudbury. Yeah, they were only these ridiculous 10-on-10 games with no contact, and their coach said, let's go best on best, like your 10 best against my 10 best, and then your bottom 10 against our bottom 10. And I think we won like 7 or 8, 1 or 2 or something like that. And Mangoni, Cooper Foster, and Lincoln Moore were on a line together. And for those guys if they would have had an opportunity, that team, it would have been special. I think we would have been able to, win a league title fairly easily and then have a real chance at all Ontario's. So we saw it. I mean, that the progression he made from say training camp when he was 14, when he tried out, to the end of his 16-year-old year. And then we had him throughout the summer skating with all the OHL and pro guys. And you can see he just loves it. So yeah, the U18 draft it's super important. And there's great examples locally. It's great for our U18 guys to be able to see, hey, but it's not just, it's not necessarily all about the U18 draft. You got to be a special kid. You got to be like, man, you got to love it. You got to have work ethic. And it's whether you're a U18 draft pick or a 12th rounder or a 5th rounder. I mean, there's nothing handed out in the OHL. So he's earned everything. And, he's a great example for fellow players here from the Sioux and all over, really. And they love him there. They absolutely, when I talk to them, whether it's Brian, the assistant GM, Dave, the GM, or their coach, Laz, I mean, they love him there because he's a great young man. And we love being around him too in the summers here. I mean, he brings a great energy. He's been well raised. And, it's just not everybody has an easy path. They're not all superstars at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. So, there's something to be said for, allowing more players to develop longer, and having those two, going back to what we just talked about, the 2 AAA teams, but we also got to make sure that we're developing our really high-end guys as well. So that's where it becomes tricky.
And this question here, I probably could do a separate show on it, but your GM hat and your scout hat with Ottawa, this possible new rule with the NCAA and CHL players, does that trickle down to Junior A, you think?
It's a great question. I was actually talking to Kevin Kane about it this morning, and it's going to be fascinating. We didn't really talk about the impact that it would have on Junior A. Typically things are a trickle down effect here, right? So we'll see what happens. I don't think it's imminent, but it could be, it could be something that we see in the next handful of years. It'll be real interesting to see, and it's be fascinating how they're going to work it all out. It's that's why I think it's going to take so long, because there's so many different, like, do you have players that are going to have to play a certain amount of time? Do you have a limit of how many of those OHL players you can have on a college roster? And then how does it impact the young guys? Like if you're committed to college in 2029,
like a Camden O'Neill, right? I'm just using Camden.
Exactly.
He's right at that time, right?
Exactly. Right. So it'd be really interesting. Yeah. How does it affect Canadian University? Does that open more doors for Junior A guys like Sioux Thunderbirds to play Canadian University? It's not easy for our guys because it's, like I said, it's a trickle-down effect. They're all looking for OHL guys. Yeah, right. They're looking for OHL guys, but I felt like 3 or 4 of our guys could play Canadian University, but it's tough. So yeah, it's fascinating. Well above my pay grade. It's I'll just sit back like everybody else and watch and see what happens.
These quite a few. Not these won't get you in trouble, but just your like say, deciding the future, I guess you say, is Sudbury going to Oakville. How do you think they're going to compete at the national championships?
I think, like anything, I've been lucky to be part of some teams who have been there and have had success, and then part of teams that have gone there and haven't won a game. So Tibbs will have to stand on his head for sure. But, they have an older team. Like, I think they have 7 or 8 guys that played major junior. So they shouldn't, the moment shouldn't be too big for them. So, wouldn't be surprised if they did well. Ultimately, those short tournaments, you win a game, you feel good about yourself. And then the ball starts rolling, you get some good goaltending, you get timely goals, you get everybody selling out. And, in our 2012 year, Johnny Kleinens was a RBC Cup legend, so tournament MVP. So Tibbs goes there and he's had the experience of going there, and, we got given it to us pretty good in Estevan there. So, they should be ready. Mason Chironi played there. So, it helps to have some experience, and it also helps to have so many guys who've been part of the OHL.
And as of this morning, they're ranked 5th going into the tournament. So that's out of 10 teams, that's middle of the pack. I guess you can't complain, I guess, if you're Blaine Smith.
Yeah. I mean, I don't look at rankings. I look at the Alberta League, the Saskatchewan League. I mean, the commitments. Yeah, I think the rankings are what they are. I mean, they just go by winning percentage. There's a lot of, I mean, with all due respect to all the teams in our league, I think we all know it. There's teams in the Ottawa League last year that had 13 Division I commitments. There's teams in Alberta that have 19 or 20. And sometimes we end up ranked ahead of them. So those are for other, but we don't really pay too much attention to those things here. Ultimately, we're just trying to get to that point. We celebrate one here. Our league this year had 2. That was 2 more than they've had for a few more years. So, that's a step forward. But we also have OHL commitments, and so it's just different here. I hope we can continue to celebrate those commitments. Whether it's Vlasic and Blind River, Oni, Gallivan sign in the OHL. That's what we're here for. And the teams are doing a great job of that. There's some really good teams, and some really good leagues for sure.
And I use going into next year, even with Elliott Lake going back, hopefully to Elliott Lake, that just helps the league's perspective overall too, right? When you look at players at the trade deadline and you're playing in Massey, people go, that league, what's going on? With them going back to hopefully another nicer rink, it helps the league overall too, don't you think?
Yeah, it was tough for them. First and foremost for them and the players and the staff and the ownership. It's obviously not great for the league either. It's every league has some teams who have challenges, and ours is no different. It's no different in the Southern League. Every league has its challenges. So, we have a 12-team league right now. Ultimately, I know everybody's goal is the same. We want 12 competitive teams. It only helps the recruiting. It helps the fans. If we have teams that come here with 4 or 5 wins and have lost 20 straight games, it's tough to get people to come watch. So everybody's trying, and hopefully they can continue to do so. The good thing is, places like Cochrane, we've seen them have success. They've made finals. They've won championship. Iroquois Falls, the year before I started in this league in 2010, they were the best team in the league. There's a picture there with over 1,500 people. So they've done it before. You have to have great staffs, great committed people. And Elliott Lake was a really, really good team for a long time in this league. So, it's happened before. So we have faith that it can happen again. And that's what we're hoping for. And
now with your OHL hat on, how do you think, like you say, Oshawa or Saginaw are going to do at the Memorial Cup in Saginaw?
Well, Oshawa's got to play London first to get there. So,
sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
I watched every game with Ottawa and Oshawa, and then I watched all of the Saginaw games so far against the Sioux, and then against London. London's a powerhouse, but Oshawa's they're talking about the last 2 teams standing, right? So both, even North Bay, what a ride there. I was saying, like, Mike McIver, what a year he had, what a playoff he had, to come in, number 1 goalie gets injured. So, and we just played him in the U18 league last year, right? So he had a great season, and it's Saginaw showed they can compete. So in the Memorial Cup, when it's a 1-game, in a 1-game situation, if they can get to the semis, I'm sure all those teams are thinking the same thing. Like, let's get to the semifinals, and then let's see what can happen. You get a hot goalie, you get hot. They have so much skill on that team, but London's loaded. Oshawa is just, I think they finished the season, 12 wins in a row or something like that, and then rolled, had a great series against us. You need everything going in the playoffs, like I mentioned before, with some, your goaltending, your special teams, your best players need to be your best players, and it'll be a great finals and then a great Memorial Cup. Well, we might venture down and catch a game, so we're excited about that, and it'd be a great environment down there, and for those guys, like our local guys, what an experience, right? What an opportunity of a lifetime.
And like you say, 2 last questions. Second last question: your most dedicated fan of all. When can Brady Henderson play for the Thunderbirds? What year is that?
Haven't thought that far ahead. I know I'd be lying if I didn't say what his draft year was, but he's only turned 7 this year. He just got rid of his hockey mullet there last night. So, he definitely has big dreams, and we'll see down the road here.
And it makes fun for Dad to have somebody who, I'm saying, in the house that loves it as much as he does, if not more, I think.
Yeah. He's pretty good at, he's got a lot of interests. We had basketball Monday night, and we'll be on the ice tonight, and he loves soccer and he loves golf. And so he keeps us busy, that's for sure. And so that's the biggest thing, is just, each sport kind of teaches him different things, allows him to meet new friends, and that's really the important thing right now. And he loves being around. He loves being around the guys in the summer. He loves he's in the dressing room every game night. So it's one of the real neat things about he's grown up at the rink, since he was 2 years old. Whether it was this team or the U18 team, the guys are great to him. It was one of the things when we had our meeting with the team at the end of the year. I just thank them because they're so good to him, and it's a big part of our lives, obviously, the rink, and so to share it with him and allows me to spend some quality time with him.
And that's where I go back. I'm 54 years old. My parents owned a junior B team, like you say, from when I was 8 till I was 18, and I hung around, lived at the rink with my dad, so I know exactly how you feel and how Brady felt. And if you love hockey, it makes it more fun, right? Yeah,
it was great. Yeah, for sure. We have some great pictures at the house with from the years where we won there. So there's great memories, and when he's older, he'll be able to look back, and just even your videos actually on YouTube. The kids like him and the baby. Well, he's not really a baby anymore, 2.5 years old, but they'll watch, and they live on YouTube as most kids do, right? So a lot of times they'll find their way to those videos. So it's great. It's Cole's got his kids around, and they're a little bit older, and so yeah, we want to have a family environment here, and the kids are great. Like I said, they're really, really, some of these kids, Brady's been around now for 2, 3, 4 years, Harley Wardell and Jacob Smith and McCauley and Fellinger and, these kind of guys, right? So he's not just, he's part of it. He's really part of it.
Does he help you scout?
He does like watching video with me, but usually it doesn't last long, and it's back to YouTube. So, yeah.
Last question. If I'm sitting here as a parent wanting my kid to come to Sault Ste. Marie to play for the Thunderbirds next year, recruiting wise, what do you say to them?
It's a great question. We had a great call last night, and ultimately, the one thing that I could always hang my hat on here is we're going to treat people the right way. We're going to help them on and off the ice. It's an everyday commitment thing. Like I'm not shy to be really honest with people. If you don't love working, if you don't really want to get better, if you like the idea of playing hockey, but you don't really, love what's all encompassing of being a hockey player, this might not be the place for you. But if you're committed and you want to be a hockey player, and you understand what it takes, and it's like every day, this is a great place to play hockey. It's a great place to learn. And we're very committed to helping everyone on an individual basis. So, like I said, we're excited. We've had some great opportunities to meet some people and have great conversations. And we've had some people this year who have committed literally within 24 hours. And I think it's a testament to what our league does in terms of development, and ultimately how you treat people gets around. And hopefully, that's something that we can hang our hats on. And then, helping players get to the next level, and being part of their journey. It's this is a partnership. It's not about us. It's not about the players. It's a partnership. We do our part. I always say, you do your part, we'll do our part. That's the one thing. Like I will guarantee you, we will coach. We will do our part. You do your part. We'll do our part. So, like I said, we're excited to bring a new group in. We'll be super excited on June 1st when we could start to announce them like the other leagues. And, it'll be a, exciting summer. We know how quickly it goes by. It feels like forever already, the off season, because we've been off so long.
You're not used to it, right?
Yeah. But having said that, it's, you do need some time to recharge. I'm not great at that. It's not something I typically enjoy doing, but, in the next, in June, there'll be some time to really, refresh and recharge. And then July and August, it's let's go.
Well, Jamie, I can't thank you enough. And hopefully June 1st, we can be at the John Rhodes with some of the announcements with you.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. We'd love to do that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Shay. Thanks for having me.